Welcome back, Dan, for another segment of World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Tripoli. Let me hasten to add one broadcast that I forgot to mention, the Guns and Butter broadcast of Bonnie Faulkner on KPFA San Francisco and WBAI New York. That should be on fairly soon. Take a look at her website, tune into those stations, take a look when those come on. I think they may be on already, may have been. And I would just put those up once again as report from Libya number 3 or number 4, right, for people listening in the control room there in Virginia. So that's the way that it started with these marches that were marches on military facilities with the goal of stealing the weapons. Al Jazeera then comes in and starts with the big lie. Big lie number 1 is that there is Gaddafi shooting at civilians. There's no proof. I've talked to a correspondent of Telesur of Venezuela. He has been to a place where the NATO butchers have claimed that there were large-scale attacks on civilians. He went to see it. There's no evidence. There's no marks of bombs or machine guns, and none of the things, the telltale signs that an actual air attack would be behind. And remember, early in the conflagration here, Russian sources put out a very valuable report saying that that the satellites of Russia had ruled out any attack on civilians by the Libyan government. So this is all a big lie. The hope was in NATO circles that the group around Gaddafi would be so shocked by these results that they would join in this ignominious flight by weaker leaders such as Ben Ali or by Mubarak. Mubarak having put up more of a fight, but having been forced by the foreign agent Tantawi and Annan to finally capitulate. I would point once again to that interview by Lally Weymouth in the Washington Post with one of the so-called Egyptian democracy dissidents, in reality a NATO agent, where he says that Tantawi and Annan were getting their orders from the Obama White House through Samantha Power and Michael McFaul of the National Security Council, who this dissident democracy leader, hero, he says, those are good friends of mine, and they were giving the orders from Obama to Tantawi. Now, if you're a colonel in the Libyan army, if you're a colonel in the Egyptian army in particular, what do you think about that guy Tantawi taking orders from Obama, a foreign imperialist government, and quite predatory too, overthrowing the government of your country? Whatever you think of Mubarak, I think that becomes a secondary issue. And of course, if you're out in Pakistan and you look at General Kayani, and if you think that General Kayani is too compliant with the demands from Washington, well, that's been the tradition, right? Colonels, coup d'etats carried out by colonels, nationalist military figures interested in economic progress with populist programs, from Nasser to Gaddafi to Chavez, maybe back to Egypt, maybe over to Pakistan. Maybe that's about the best we can get out of this situation, because the color revolutions are rolling and the opposition lacks leadership, they lack program, they lack organization. Maybe it's going to have to be some of these colonels, and maybe things can proceed from there. Now, just in terms of the military stuff, I want to make this point. We're getting all these reports. Alex Jones has them at his website. I've written them up also on Tarpley.net, that we're going to have a land invasion of Libya. Well, let me counsel against this in the most urgent terms I can. You cannot do this. Number one, Gaddafi, the so-called tyrant, has distributed between 1 and 2 million assault rifles, Kalashnikovs and related, to the population here in this area. So people here are heavily armed. There are also lots of RPGs in private hands, in residential homes. I talked to one man who was an ambassador a very cultured man, fluent in English and in French, and wise in the ways of the world. He said that he has enough Kalashnikovs in his house and enough RPGs that he thinks that he can wipe out at least 4 NATO tanks and, I don't know, maybe a guess would be a platoon of troops with the people in his extended family, which can get to be quite numerous. So that's one family. Now multiply that by, I don't know, 500,000 or 1 million, depending. You can get an idea of what it's going to be like. The other thing about it is people would say, well, you know, what's the organizational structure of such a resistance? Well, unfortunately, it is there and it is ready-made, and it could hardly offer more small unit cohesion than it does. This is the tribal structure itself. Virtually everyone here is a member of a tribe. The tribal identification is always there, and in many cases quite strong. The number of people who don't have any identification with any tribe is small, 3 or 4%, something like this. The other ones are all members of a tribe. Now that means that that's a perfect made-to-order form of organization where the trust is given by ties of blood and parents and relatives and so forth, could hardly be more cohesive. So I would say to military planners in the Pentagon, this is the last place in the world you want to mess around with this stuff. This will be a bloodbath. There will be rivers of blood. This will make Black Hawk Down, Somalia, look like a Sunday walk in the park. That will be a pleasant weekend afternoon compared to what you're going to find here. Now, this population has also documented how tough it is. They have held out now for 100 days under NATO bombing and ground attack by al-Qaeda terrorist forces. They compare themselves to Serbia. Serbs are tough, no doubt about it. The Serbs, however, folded after 68 days, and there was no ground attack. Here, 100 days with ground attack. So Serbs may be tough, but Libyans are tougher. You didn't want to find out what the Serbs had in store for you. You sure as hell don't want to find out what Libya might have in store for you. So please spread the word to any military planners you know. I would also hasten to point out, though, there is not animosity against foreigners. You would think that with the NATO flying bombers killing people left and right, civilians, children, women, that there would be, lynchings of foreigners. But no, I have not found any animosity. People actually welcome people coming, especially if they're foreigners of goodwill, so that they can tell the Libyan story outside. And I would urge everybody to do that. Call the congressman, call the senator, say this is a huge lie. There never was a threat to international peace and security. It's purely an internal affair. So that's the Libyan ability for self-defense. I think is quite formidable. Now, a couple of other things that are going on. Why do they hate Gaddafi so much? Well, they've been trying to kill him for all these years. Specifically, right now, we have an unconfirmed report that Dominique Strauss-Kahn, when he was entrapped by that CIA op in New York City, his plan for the next day or two was to fly to Berlin to meet with Chancellor Merkel of Germany, after which meeting, if it succeeded, Merkel was going to send one of her top advisors to Libya. So this would have been an alternative to the dollar. Very, very interesting. And we'll have a couple of other things about how NATO is trying to mobilize the Berbers and the Tuaregs of North Africa with very little success. And we're also going to have for you a report from the Friday demonstration with about 1 million people expected to be in the streets. But that's coming up in just a minute on World Crisis Radio.